I think Asians in general have a guest mentality. So when you are a guest, you don't want to interfere with a lot of things. You don't want to tell, the owner what to do.
I was at a bar, so I had my Korean passport. I didn't have my license back then, so I used to carry around the passport. And this guy just came up to me and he was like, "Are you South Korean?" So I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "We hate South Korean people."
What was his profile?
He was white.
White, older
yeah.
man? He might have just been hitting on you.
No.
All rise. Hey, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on the show. I'm so glad to have Sidney Sohn, Joyce Yoon on the show today. I can introduce you, but I think it'd be better if you guys introduce yourself. Joyce, please.
I'm Joyce. I'm a content creator for a media company.
Hi, I'm Sidney Sohn, victims' rights advocate. I used to be a student activist in UCLA, protesting against anti-immigration measures back in the 90s.
I'm Tsao. I'm a former Marine officer, attorney practicing for over 20 years, and now I'm a victim rights, victim advocate, attorney. We're going to talk a little bit about anti-Asian and anti-Asian American hate crimes that's been going on, not just in Los Angeles, all over the country, but we're here in Los Angeles, so I guess for us, what's relevant is what's happening on the West Coast. Before we start though, just want to say, I'm not Korean, so there's a drink that I've always seen on Korean shows I always wanted to try. I got some for us today here. I see it's called Pocari Sweat. The show is not sponsored by them. They're not endorsing anything we say.
Never tried it.
You know why? Because it says sweat on it.
Yeah, so it tastes like sweat actually. You'll see.
What?
You'll be disappointed.
No, it tastes like sweat?
Yeah.
It's like Gatorade.
Wow. I'm sorry, Pocari. What do you think about the Asian American and Asian community in general here in the U.S.?
Including my parents and obviously my friends' parents. We're told to basically keep our head down and do your work and become doctors, lawyers, journalists, basically make your living and then also raise a child to, have the same kind of opportunities. So I think it's innate in us to basically not to pay attention what's around us, and then just kind of concentrate on what's going on in our affairs. That's why we have low involvement in political arena, as well as, public speaking. Nowadays, obviously generations behind us, there are a lot more, but in our generation, we didn't see that many, Asian Americans representing us on our behalf. I think Asians in general have a guest mentality. So when you are a guest, you don't want to interfere with a lot of things. You don't want to tell, the owner what to do. That kind of makes you feel like, okay, I can't really speak out and I don't really need to get involved in a lot of these things that basically publicly going to be highlighted.
There's a proliferation of recorded anti-Asian American incidents, right? And so we're going to take a look at some of them now.
You're so Asian.
Yeah, and you bumped our car. What the is wrong with you?
You're so Asian.
Stop!
Shut the fuck up.
So what happened is this guy, Weber, he was given a misdemeanor citation, but he didn't show up to court. So now there's a fugitive warrant out on him.
Being drunk is not an excuse, commit this kind of hate crime.
In Korea, only in Korea.
Maybe. It's not about really what they say, it's about how it makes the victims feel. When you talk about race, when you talk about things that you didn't have a control over, how to become a Korean or American, you're born basically who you are, then when you make fun of that or when you actually ridicule that, I think something innate in you basically gets hurt.
Well, I think it also reinforces this subconscious idea you're talking about, that this is not your home.
Exactly.
Right? So you're like, oh, wow, I guess this isn't my home. Because how can somebody ask you to go home if this is your home, right? Maybe that's the response you need to have, go home. I am home, I would be interested to know how many incidents have occurred at this McDonald's. If there's been several incidents, especially in a short period of time, McDonald's needed to have intervened before further incidents occurred, meaning they needed to have better security. There is a potential cause of action for something called negligent security. So that means, hey, 10 people got robbed at different times at this Ralph's, right? And I'm the Ralph's manager or whatever. Well, you know what? I don't change anything because it doesn't matter to me. I'm not these people. That's not good enough, right?
I think what also the retail establishments forget is not just inside of your establishment. It goes out to your parking lot too. Security actually needs to be outside of the facility to make sure within the parameters of your property, including the parking lot, is secure.
So I have a question. Like, if that happens to me, like physical altercation in like the McDonald's drive-thru or parking lot, is it better for me to like call the police and like handle it with law enforcement, or to get an attorney? And
Do
like,
both.
I can do both.
Well, at the time, if the threat continues and guys basically lingering around, you should call the police. Even if he left, you feel like you basically were, attacked, and that person needs to be prosecuted. After that, you could, get an attorney.
So can I sue McDonald's even after he gets prosecuted?
Yeah, there's two separate track of,
okay.
legal proceedings.
Well, I think also practically speaking, you'll want to call the police no matter what, because you want to file a report. Because in the report will confirm that this incident happened. So it's a record that this incident actually occurred. Because otherwise, if let's say you didn't file a report, and let's say McDonald's didn't do a report, then all you have is your memory. Like, hey, 3 months ago I got attacked at this McDonald's, and then people are like, okay, well, is there anybody else who knows about it? You're like, no.
Yeah, I think also the practical advice is take as many photos and videos as possible, not of the event, but afterwards. Like when you talk to a McDonald's supervisor, get their name, get their statement. If you could record how they basically interact with you, because they have a procedure they're supposed to follow. Sometimes they don't even give you follow-up or incident report, so you got to make sure, how do I get that incident report? Because I want to basically get a copy of it, ask for that. And then when you talk to an attorney, they could actually send something called the preservation letter, sending to the establishment saying that don't delete your, video for CCTV footage. If you have any other recording, preserve it, because, they periodically delete over the, whatever the recorded before. So that's another thing you could do with an attorney, send a preservation letter to make sure the evidence is preserved, and then, we get the whole picture of what had happened. Have you ever experienced any kind of Asian hate, racism? Yeah. I could start. I think I said it last time. I grew up in La Cañada, and I talked about, one of the restaurants that's no longer there called Conrad's. And when I go with my friends, who were basically Koreans or minorities, we weren't, basically even brought water, asked what we want for like 20, 25 minutes, even the restaurant is empty. Right, it's intentional. And when I'm playing tennis with my friends, and then people just driving by, and just racial epithet. There's another thing is, I used to get KKK flyer in my
KKK.
Yeah, fried chicken.
KKK was still active.
Oh, yeah,
during like 1992.
Yeah. No, this is when I moved back. In the community in La Crescenta, this is like 10 years ago. And the funny thing is, no, it's a flyer. It's like, we gotta protect the brotherhood. KKK.
That's crazy.
You should join. What about you? Have you experienced it here in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Or I thought you were gonna say something in Korea.
Well, what
not a racist.
In college, I was walking down the street with like a few of my friends. Like this white guy was walking his dog, and he was coming towards us, and then he randomly just said, "My dog loves Chinese food." My friend was like, "What did you say?" And the guy was passing by, and he was like mocking the language. And then like a few years later, I went to Vegas, and I was at a bar, so I had my Korean passport. I didn't have my license back then, so I like used to like carry around the passport. And like this guy just came up to me, and he was like, "Are you South Korean?" So I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "We hate South Korean people." And he was like talking about how Trump hates you guys.
What was his profile? Like what
He was
kind?
white.
White, older man? I don't think that's actually accurate, though. He might have just been hitting on you.
No.
He's saying, "I have COVID like a dog." I have COVID like a dog!
So this Korean broker used AI bot, reserved every single tea time available in LA. You shouldn't be harassed for any reason, especially for that.
Yeah, especially because you got that tea time fair and square through AI bot. Like, that's not fair.